Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stream recap of the live stream I did on June 30th or June 29th through the 30th, where through IVA only and no time warp I flew to the Mun and back. This is a recreation of parts of that stream because I didn't record it all. The rocket didn't have the side boosters like that. This is a recreation for 1.10. The update happened shortly after, and I needed some way to show how the rocket flew. But this is basically the same thing. The vehicle is a pretty simple vehicle. This bottom stage uses the Rhino engine, and then these are the two mainsail engines for the secondary stage. And then I used the Making Histories expansion. One of the Making History expansion engines for the Transmun injection stage. The flight to orbit was pretty easy. Well, I say it was pretty easy. Trying to fly a rocket by hand using a joystick is not exactly the easiest thing to do. But I was able to accomplish it, getting us to 125 kilometer circular orbit. I completed a single orbit once I achieved it, making some observations of Kerbin as I flew around, waiting until I flew to the Transmun injection point, burning until I got an encounter with the Mun. I was able to position myself and do a safe trajectory to get to the Mun. From there, we prepared to make our transposition and docking. Again, this is all recreation, so this isn't exactly what happened. So we positioned ourselves for transposition and docking, using action groups to prepare myself for it, and using the docking port alignment indicator for the actual docking rather quickly. And then we extracted the lunar lander from the Transmun injection stage, and then warped our way to the Mun. On our way there, we had a couple of course correction burns, one right after we entered the sphere of influence of the Mun, in order to make sure that we had a orbit that took us down to about 20 kilometers. I chose 25 to 20 kilometers as the orbit around the Mun, as it was low enough for safely descending. And then we made our injection into Mun orbit, completed another orbit around Mun, performed an EVA, and then prepared ourselves for landing. Okay, beginning landing procedure. And beginning descent burn in 3. Oh, come on. 2, 1. Okay, we're now on descent. Now we wait. Okay. Estimated time of impact 4 minutes 44 seconds. Awesome. I should have waited for another orbit. No, we're eating it now. Here we go. "17 kilometers above the surface." Okay. Here we go. We're a little high, but I want to slow us down a little more because I don't want to end up on the dark side. If we lose power, I won't be able to get back into orbit until a few hours later. We'll end up having a lot longer of a stay if we end up landing on the dark side, and that will not be as fun. At least for me it won't. Or anybody. Because then I'll have to wait for power to come back, and that ain't exactly realistic. We might have to cut the stay on the surface early to try and make sure that we beat the sunset. "40 seconds till impact." We're coming up in a really mountainous region. Of course, I hit right at the rim of this crater. I'm going to try and move us forward just a little bit and try and get over this crater. I'm worried that we'll end up in that shadow, and that place doesn't look like it sees a lot of sunlight around this time of year. Son of a... Come on. I am not a very good pilot, if you can't tell. Come on, I'm trying to keep it under control. Our slope is a little more than 5 degrees, but it might work just fine for this. Oh boy. What's our speed? Our speed is 10 meters a second. Altitude, 1 kilometer. 281 meters a second at delta V left. Out of all the worst case scenarios I had to get, it had to be this one during the stream. Okay. Got ourselves locked in. We're at 34 meters a second. 700 meters. Should get a radar ping at 150 meters above the surface. 24 meters a second. 20% of fuel left. .300 meters above the surface. 9 meters a second. Throttling down. That's a big crater right there. Throttling down. 3 meters a second. 200 meters. 183 meters a second left of delta V. Getting it back into view. We're almost there. We're within 150 meters. Beginning to slow down again. Throttling back. 50 meters. 30 meters. 25 meters. 10 meters. 3, 2, 1. Contact light. Engine off. Bit of a hop. Not my best landing. Not my best landing, but we are on the surface. Ah! Where are we at? Houston Midlands base. The Terrior has landed. Oh, live on stream and everything. All right. So shortly after landing on the Mun, I started to prepare everything for the EVA and for the long stay that I was going to be there. I decided I was going to take a rest period while I was on the surface. So that meant I wanted to shut everything down to try and make sure and preserve power. I ended up putting the probe control in hibernation mode in order to save power, because that was one of those things that draws a lot of power out. But I was trying to be safe, because if I lost power, none of these screens would have worked, and there would have been no way for me to... I could have eyeballed it into orbit, but it would have been an incredibly difficult process, and I just didn't want to do that. And if I lost power, I would have stayed the extra time there. Coming down the ladder now, I forgot to put on my helmet at that time. I do put it on a little later, which we'll see. My goal was to take I still had some of the parts left over from when I had put a satellite together in low Mun orbit. The satellite didn't assemble as I had originally planned, so I decided to abandon that, and I forgot to put the parts away. Here's the first attempt at assembling the lunar rover. If I had spent a little more time on it, I probably would have gotten it, but I was rather impatient and I didn't really need it. It was more of a test to assemble it. I attempted to... I don't know why that strut is kind of rolling like that. It doesn't seem to want to stop. Even if I bump into it, I think I'll get phantom forces. Anyway, so I assembled it as best as I could. I wanted to have a small tricycle style lunar rover using some of the parts from the expanded Restock Plus parts, but shortly after trying to get the probe control attached to it, everything sort of just started to fall apart, and I didn't have the patience to try and get it to assemble there. So instead I ended up abandoning that as well, putting everything back away, and moving on to deploying the small science. I had I brought a couple of different experiments with me, but I decided to just deploy the probe control, the surface science control station, and the seismic sensor. That way I could record. It was more or less just so I could do something on EVA. I deployed it over here a little ways away, so that way, in a realistic scenario, it's to protect it from the dust. Although the dust would very much, from takeoff, would very much get that far. I believe it was Apollo 14 or 15. I can't remember. I think it was 14. No, it was Apollo 12. They landed close to a Surveyor probe, and they discovered that upon landing, the dust had traveled rather far, and had actually done damage to the Surveyor probe that they had landed within a couple miles of, or they had landed rather close to it. Here I am going to grab one more, a Munrock, a Munstone. But yeah, the Surveyor probe was actually damaged when the lunar module landed near it. So in future landings, for future missions, NASA has decided that what they're going to do is they're going to plan to land the full landers much further away from the base in order to protect the equipment there. And that's something that I'm assuming that they're thinking of with the Artemis mission. Making my way back to the lunar lander, we're going to just prepare to get for a rest period. Planting my flag down, I decided this is the Terrior landing site, and this is actually something that I'd like to say if I ever get a chance to go to the moon, or I hope that the first person to return to the moon says something like this. It's kind of a callback to Apollo 17 when Gene Cernan left the moon. What it says is, "We've come as we left, and God willing, as we shall go farther, with hope and peace for all mankind," which is a callback to Gene Cernan. As he left, he said, "We leave as we came, and God willing, as we shall return, with peace and hope for all mankind." I might have butchered that quote. Don't at me with it. I should know it, but it's difficult to remember a lot of these things. So getting into the space capsule, I started to undress, checked on everything, made sure I didn't lose too much power, and prepared myself for a long sleep period. The next and close to final part of our journey was the return to rendezvous and docking. This is one of the more difficult parts of flying IVA only. Rendezvous with the IVA mods that I have it does make it a little easier, but it is still a difficult thing to do. Again, this is a recreation of what happened. It didn't go exactly like this, but the rendezvous is a little more difficult just because you can't. I didn't want to end up using the map view, which made a lot of things a little more difficult, particularly rendezvous and docking. But I ended up doing it, and I ended up timing it just right, so that way I would end up with a rather quick rendezvous. It actually took me less than a couple orbits to do it. It was actually faster in the stream than it was. Anyway, I'm going to swap over to a recreation from a recording from the stream of when I rendezvoused now. Okay. We are 200 meters out. Oh god, that was these are like the two hardest parts, and I did it. I've done it. Like, at this point, this is like one of the easiest things to do now. Rendezvous was one of the big things I was worried about, and I've done it. I've done it. I freaking did it. You can't tell me I didn't do it because I just did it. 15 meters. Good morning, you're just in time. I've just rendezvoused with the command module, and we are now about 10 meters out from docking. I am incredibly proud of myself at this moment. All I'm saying is if someone works... Yeah. I was a little worried about that at first, but I just kind of kept my angle of attack high and just made sure that I had a steep climb. 4 meters. This thing lined up. That is amazing. We did it. So after docking, we transferred. I transferred myself over, undocked from the lander, and waited until we came to a point where I could make a transfer to low Kerbin orbit and begin the reentry. This is pretty much where this is one of the longer periods of the stream. I spent most of it asleep, flying back to Kerbin. Pointed myself normal, retracted the solar panels, ditched the service module, pointed myself retrograde, and just came back home. At this point, I want to thank you all very much for watching. I do plan on doing more streams like this later on in the future. The next one that I might do is probably a return to the Mun, this time with a rover and having a slightly longer stay. But other than that, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this, hit like. If you want to see more, subscribe. And join me over on Twitch.